So this video is going to go over the Cummins quick serve diagrams. What we're going to cover basically is their layout, what the two different sections mean, and basically where to go with this guy. We're going to start with navigation. So once you log into QuickServe and you open your wiring diagrams, you're going to be greeted with this guy. Now it does let you zoom in. As you see, sometimes depending on your internet connection, it may be blurry or not. You may have to zoom in a couple times in and out to get a section to actually buffer, just like that. So what we're going to talk about is why this is split in two, what these symbols over here mean, and how this pertains to reading the schematic. What we're going to talk about first is how Cummins splits the schematic in two. So the reason they do that is up here. So the current generation of Cummins ECMs has two major connectors here. J1 up here, and then there's J2 down here. Now each of these have their own jobs, but the way we can organize it is most of the customer required inputs happen here at J2, and all of the Cummins requirements happen here at J1. As we saw up here, we have two inputs into the ECM, right? J1, J2, and like we said, the schematic is cut down the middle. So if we look down here at the bottom, we can see we've got an OEM responsibility and then a Cummins responsibility, and then there's a dotted line right here. So what this is saying is everything on this side of this line, Cummins is going to provide. Now everything on this side of the line, Cummins may provide some of the devices, like this depth dosing valve right here, or these connectivity modules. But this wiring over here is customer responsibility. So the customer, whoever is buying this Cummins engine, they are providing the wiring to this connector right here. Everything on, like I said, everything on this side over here is Cummins responsibility. Everything out here as far as wiring is the OE, so whoever is putting this Cummins engine in their equipment. So then, now that we've determined what the responsibility means, we're going to dive into the connector section, which is right here. This is going to talk about the different connectors we're going to see on this, either on the harness or in the system. So we're back here to our ECM, right? Right here is our J1. Here is its pin layout. So pin 1 right here, all the way down to pin 24 right here. So this would be your view if you were looking into this connector. The same goes for J2 right here. All this is an expansion of this connector right here, and it's the same layout. You got pin 1 to 24, and it just starts over pin 25 to pin 48, so on and so on. Now this is your view again looking into this connector. Now if we back out a little further, we have more information down here. So what we have here is the plug that's going to go into this connector, right? So if you notice, our pin orientation is the exact opposite, and that is because this is the plug right here that goes into that connector. Now you can also see you have one for each, right? So this is Cummins giving you the information that you need to look at the connectors that are hooking up into any device that is their responsibility. So let's dive into those responsibilities a little bit more. Now we've talked about how, again, this drawing is cut in half. Here is our J1 connection, and then down here, these are the pin numbers of these individual circuits right here going back to the ECM. So this is their drawing schematic referencing the pin numbers of the items we just talked about up there. There will be other connectors sometimes involved in the connections of that harness, which they will tell you the name and then they'll tell you the pin number. Now when we get into the J2 connection, right, which is going to be this guy right here, now we're going to do the customer responsibility. So this is all the pins in J2, but again, this is on the other side of the schematic. So everything here is going to be customer responsibility to supply. So if it's a Komatsu loader or something that's using this engine, this is all going to be Komatsu's responsibility out here to supply. But the pin numbers here are actually on the ECM, so they will be the same. So I want to take us back to connectors a little bit more. There's a few more here I want to talk about that are in this section. So what they're going to give us in this area is any device or connection or any kind of no, let's try that again. So any device that Cummins supplies, they're going to give us the details about those connections. So right here we've got an air engine intake air throttle actuator, right? This is the connector going to that device. They're not going to give us the device, but this is basically the connector to it. So it's going to give us the shape, the name. If we have the test kit, they'll give us the lead that we're going to need to pin into this, but they're also going to give us, more importantly, the pin orientation. Right here we've got the after treatment dosing valve. So this is going to be the depth doser on the after treatment system. It's not on the engine, but Cummins supplies this depth doser, so they're going to give us the pinouts. So if we unhook this connector from the dosing valve, these are our pin locations. So this is the orientation we need when we start looking at the troubleshooting, which is going to tell us to pin into specific pins and check for voltage or resistance. Okay, so the other thing that I usually wind up referencing back to this schematic, maybe not this specific one, but at least for the Cummins schematics, is for things like these pin numbers. Now, you'll notice on this drawing, we have these common power sources. So we've got a power, so sensor supply, and we've also got a common for all these sensors here, but they're ganged right here going back to J1. Now individually, you can see we have, let me clear this off a little bit so you can see better. So we do have the individual signals going back off of each sensor. So this is commonly critical when it comes to troubleshooting with this schematic. So again, this is a J1 connector over here, and this is all Cummins responsibility. So one of the things I wanted to note is some of the different inputs you see on the J1 versus the J2. So here we are back on J2, and what we have is we get these feedback signals right here. Sometimes we'll see these, I often see these being an issue in the field. You have these three feedbacks right here feeding back into J2. So this is a three-legged circuit. So a lot of times we'll see, here's the customer supplied relay right here sending power out to the def line heaters right here, but they're also sending a feedback signal to the ECM to let the ECM know that that circuit is active. So there's one more thing I want to show you when it comes to feedback. Okay, so up here, this is where we were just talking about feedback signals. There is another one right here. We see right here, this is the after treatment diesel exhaust fluid dosing unit. So this is the pump, or the DEF pump. It's going to be powered by this relay right here. So when the relay closes, let's clear off some of this stuff. So when this relay up here closes, power is going to come down this line over here and to this pump. But you'll notice right here there's a splice, and see this blue wire, this is turned from a power wire to a signal, so that's why it's turned blue. And you can see it goes right here to the crossover connector. Now, two things I want to cover here. The crossover connector is, you'll see this dotted line stops. This is Cummins' point to interact with the OEM wiring. So if there is a CAN bus, like right here, that needs to be shared with the after treatment devices, which are out on this drawing, they're going to pass through the crossover connector. Okay, any kind of feedback that needs to go to J1 over here, so J1 connector, any feedback that needs to go to J1 will have to travel through the crossover connector. So that also brings us to our next caveat. So we do see that we have this three-legged signal here from the dosing unit relay, the after treatment dosing pump. So what this is telling Cummins is that this pump has been activated. And this helps with troubleshooting when we're trying to figure out what the problem is if there's no voltage at that pump. Now, it's got three different circuits here, and one of them is going back to pin 36 on the J1. So there you go. That is a really basic overview of this wiring harness. This is generally the architecture that Cummins follows as far as how they organize their drawings. One more thing I wanted to point out is this bulletin number down here at the very bottom of the page. This number here can be used to obtain a paper copy of this schematic.